Hey, I'm Molly Pesci, and this is Barnes & Noble Tagged. When a Barnes & Noble bookseller rates a book a perfect 10, we want you to know about it. So, we are thrilled to announce the next Barnes & Noble Recommends selection is... I love this part. The Brutal Telling by Louise Penny. The name Louise Penny will be familiar to those fans of her Inspector Armand Gamache series set in the Quebec village of Three Pines. The series' debut, Still Life, earned her 4 awards and a lifelong following of fans. Penny's second and third novels, A Fatal Grace and The Cruelest Month, each won Agatha Awards for Best Novel in the tradition of Agatha Christie. Her 4th Gamache novel, A Rule Against Murder, has been named one of Booklist's top 10 crime novels for 2009. So, no wonder Louise Penny's most recent novel, The Brutal Telling, is a Barnes & Noble Recommends selection. Louise Penny, you've been tagged. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Molly.
Oh, and I loved The Brutal Telling, and congratulations. A Barnes & Noble Recommends selection. How does that feel?
I cried.
Oh,
I did when I got the phone call. I don't even know why I'm admitting this, because it's like to think of myself as a strong, independent woman of a certain age. And I got the phone call, and I went into the living room, and I was alone. My husband wasn't there. And I wept, and I wept, and I wept, and I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. Obviously, tears of joy.
Yeah. Do you think it's because as a writer you work, and to get recognition, and your other books have been recognized, but is that part of it?
Yeah, I think it is. That you work in isolation, and you really hope that you're writing a story. I write, like most writers, a book that I know I would love to read, but I'm not totally convinced that other people will adopt it and feel the same way. So when it gets that kind of approval, this matters.
For newcomers to the series, tell us about Inspector Armand Gamache and the village of Three Pines.
Three Pines is my ideal village. It's in a fictional village in Quebec, close to the Vermont border, and it is a beautiful little community with lovely people who are struggling with their lives. And into that community, in each of the books, there is a murder. And enter Chief Inspector Armand Gamache of the Sûreté de Québec. Now, I really sat down and I thought, now, what kind of a man do I want him to be? He's a substantial man. He would look, if you ran into him, he'd look like a distinguished professor. Not exactly sleek, and he likes to read, he likes long walks, he's happily married, a loving man. Because he investigates these terrible crimes across Quebec, instead of becoming embittered, which some people could be, he has become a really good man.
Tell us about The Brutal Telling. I want people to realize that even if you don't have to have read the other books, because I haven't. So walk us through what this one's about.
Well, in this one, a body is found in the bistro in Three Pines, and the bistro owner, a man named Olivier, immediately comes under suspicion. Now, Olivier makes a terrible mistake early on. He denies knowing this man, but we as the reader see him in the very first chapter with the murder victim, and we know, and he knows that he knows the man, and we know that he's lying, and he's lying all the way through, and we have that sense of it constricting on him as Gamache gets closer and closer.
You live in Canada, correct?
I do.
And this is just so full of just fascinating characters. Is this just a rich environment for writing?
Quebec certainly is.
Yeah.
Because Quebec has that duality too of the French and the English, so I'm able to use both sides. And certainly rural Quebec, I think it's a mistake. I was raised in big cities, and for many years I had that arrogance where I thought, well, people who live outside, clearly they leave their brain in the city. They go and who knows how they function, but I'm more highly functioning than they ever will be. Then I moved to the country and found that just is not true. That people there are, in many ways, I hate to say it, have made often smarter choices because they make lifestyle choices, things that really matter.
The book is out this week, Louise Penny. It is called The Brutal Telling. Here's a tagged close-up. The pictures from this faraway country bring into focus a crucial time in world history. 44 Days, Iran and the Remaking of the World has a foreword by Iranian-born CNN commentator Christian Amanpour. But it is the pictures of the renowned photojournalist David Burnett that truly tell the story. David Burnett was one of the few Westerners to document the chaotic political maneuvering during December of 1978 that would culminate in the triumph of the Ayatollahs and the birth of the Islamic Republic. 44 Days recreates a coup that led to our long hostage crisis and the political demise of Jimmy Carter. Burnett's vivid images of the dizzying events and emotions of that turbulent time illustrate the monarchy's destruction and the establishment of a hardline regime dominated by religious leaders. With over 170 photographs and filled with powerful insights into the revolution and its pertinence today, this book is for history and current affair buffs, photography lovers, and everyone interested in the clash of Islamic fundamentalism and the West. And that's our tagged close-up. Every week, we take a look at the new offerings in the world of books, movies, and music. And this week, there is something for everyone: fiction, fantasy, romance, and music. Here we go with my top tags for this week. Drifting in as my number 5 tag is The Year of the Flood, the eagerly awaited new novel from Margaret Atwood. It is considered the sequel to her last dystopian novel, Oryx and Crake, but can also be read as a standalone. Now in the wake of disaster, the survivors must rely on their wits to get by and reflect on what went wrong. Sounding in at number 4 is An Echo in the Bone, the enormously anticipated 7th volume in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. The extraordinary story of the 18th century Scotsman, Jamie Fraser, and his 20th century time-traveling wife continues. This time, there are encounters with Benedict Arnold and Benjamin Franklin. Moving in as my number 3 tag is Going Bovine by Libba Bray, who is best known for her Victorian-era Gemma Doyle trilogy. This new novel finds a 16-year-old mad cow disease sufferer on a road trip in search of a cure with a dwarf and a garden gnome. It is a fantastical and funny ride for all. Trekking into my number 2 tag is Pilgrims, a woebegone romance by Garrison Keillor. The story begins in the familiar fictional town of Lake Wobegon, but this time they take a pilgrimage to Rome. These Midwestern characters enter alien territory and tell stories of astonishing frankness and self-revelation, all delivered with Keillor's trademark style. And I just can't help falling in love with my number 1 tag, Your Songs, the latest recordings from Harry Connick Jr. These are classic pop tunes reinterpreted by Harry Connick. This special Barnes & Noble edition has the bonus track, Killing Me Softly. And those are my top tags for this week. The mystery of the Barnes & Noble Recommends selection is solved, but the mystery of the brutal telling is just beginning. For more information, you can go to bn.com/recommends. See you next time on Barnes & Noble Tagged.